This is hard. I know I said the series is going to be about discussing and celebrating what Star Wars stories do well, where they get things right more when they go wrong, and what we can learn from them in regards to story structure, but even the novelization of Attack of the Clones was hard-pressed in taking the film's source material and making it something more cohesive and comprehensible. I mean, even Yoda's backwards talking lines were kind of hard to understand sometimes.
Tell me what you want, like a person would, and then I'll say, yes, sir.
That, and there is no greater scene in any film that better encapsulates my awkward teen years around pretty girls I had a crush on. Attack of the Clones was written by R.A. Salvatore, who also wrote the first book of the new Jedi Order series, Vector Prime. I haven't read Vector Prime, but that is the book where Chewbacca is killed via a falling moon. R.A. Salvatore's notable works include the Icewind Dale trilogy, the Dark Elf trilogy, Paths of Darkness, the Hunter's Blade trilogy, and the Cleric Quintet. I'll be honest, none of these mean anything to me. I've actually never heard of them, I'm just telling you what his website says that he's written. I know I said I wanted to ensure that this show maintained an optimistic view on the Star Wars franchise, by focusing on the positive aspects of the stories told in this universe, with looking at what each story does well. But this one is a little hard. While R.A. Salvatore does expand on inner character conflicts and gives greater context to scenes which in the movie are just downright cringeworthy on their own, there's only so much he can do with the source material he was given. A quick summary so I can talk about what I really want to talk about. The Republic is on the verge of voting to create an army to protect itself from a potential attack from the star systems succeeding from the Republic, thus given the name Separatists. Padmé is against the creation of this army, and someone is trying to have her killed. Anakin and Obi-Wan are set to protect her, and she is attacked once more. Anakin is then sent with Padmé to Naboo to go into hiding, and Obi-Wan begins an investigation to find out who is behind these attacks. This is where the story splits into two. Obi-Wan's storyline becomes a detective story, and Anakin and Padmé's becomes a love story. In the movie, neither are particularly interesting, but at least in the book, the love story is given more context by revealing Padmé's feelings for Anakin and her inner struggle with what that means. So let's talk about these two separate stories. While Obi-Wan is investigating the plot on Padmé's life, Anakin takes her into hiding at a romantic retreat in the lake country of Naboo, where they can get it on. Now here's some food for thought when it comes to love stories. Generally, we would assume that in a love story, our protagonists are two lovebirds, while the antagonist is a person trying to keep them apart, or woo one of them away from the other for their own personal conquest. But the truth of the matter is the protagonist is a lover we're rooting for, and the antagonist is a love interest. That would mean in this story, Anakin is a protagonist, while Padmé is the antagonist. And this is a bit tricky to do. You have to set up each character's wants and desires, and convince the audience that if the protagonist gets what he wants, a relationship with his love interest, the antagonist, that'll mean a richer and better life and be more in line with the interests and betterment of the love interest. Let me explain. Anakin strongly desires Padmé. Creepily so, actually. It's unhealthy and obsessive. It's frightening, to be honest. But in Salvatore's book version, we see Padmé also is developing feelings for Anakin. But she also has a sense of duty to the Senate, and she understands his duty to the Jedi, and the Jedi are not allowed to marry or have attachments, period. Anakin's desire is to have a life filled with love and affection, living alongside with his duty, while Padmé's desire is to be honest and noble to her and Anakin's commitments to the Republic. Anakin has to break through this to convince Padmé that his way leads to a better life than her way. And the writer has to convince us, the audience, as well. So that way, when he turns her to his way of thinking, it doesn't lead to Padmé's defeat, but to her changing in a way for her own betterment. Throughout the book, we see Padmé struggle with this. We have extra scenes of Padmé seeing her sister and how happy she is with her family, and not dealing with the stress of the weight of galactic politics. But Padmé also feels obligated to continue in her public service, to better the lives of everyone in their galaxy. Inner conflict for the win here. Anakin has no inner conflict with his feelings. He claims he does, but his actions prove otherwise. Padmé is deeply divided over the matter, and it shows. Sometimes she wants to be near Anakin, but when she's near Anakin, she suddenly wants to be far away because she struggles with what she feels and what she wants versus what she feels she should be doing. So on one hand, she is falling more and more in love with Anakin, and on the other, she can't live a dishonest life with a secret relationship with a Jedi. And once again, in those extra scenes with Padmé's family, they are constantly asking her when she will slow down and start her own family. Something Padmé does truly want, but she doesn't think she can have alongside her duties as senator. So when she caves down to her desires in the end and secretly marries Anakin, she's not simply abandoning her duties, she's just finally, for once, living for herself, and not who she thinks she should be for others. Coming around to Anakin's way of thinking leads to a richer life for Padmé. Better to have your desires in secret than to not have them at all. A good detective story shouldn't be a straightforward adventure. You'll want the initial murder, or in this case, attempted murder, lead to a greater and grander mystery, filled with intrigue, deception, and deeper mysteries. Every step forward may answer one question, but two more pop up in its place. All this eventually leads to a great revelation at the end, where all the events that occurred lead to a climactic reveal that we didn't see coming, but should have because all the pieces were staring at us right in the face the whole time. Couple this with inner conflict that challenges the core ideals of our detective's values, forcing him to reflect and change.
Baby, you got a stew going.
Obi-Wan's story does that. Kind of. After Obi-Wan and Anakin chase down Padmé's attempted killer, they find out she was hired by someone else. And then she is shot with a toxic dart. And Anakin and Obi-Wan see a figure in the distance that jetpacks away, which in the book, and I kid you not, Obi-Wan's inner monologue refers to this mystery person as Rocket Man. Rocket Man, burning out his fuse out of Obi-Wan takes his toxic dart that killed his initial suspect and has it analyzed, and finds out it came from Kamino, a planet whose inhabitants are known to be prolific cloners. But when he searches Kamino in the Jedi archives, no trace of it can be found. It appears to have been deleted from the archives. But who could do such a thing? Only a Jedi could do this. But what Jedi would do this, and why would he do this? We get some answers, but more questions arise from the answers. So Obi-Wan travels to Kamino, where he is greeted as if they had been expecting him. Here he is told the clone army the Jedi ordered is ready to be delivered. This clone army was ordered by Master Sifo Dyas, who was killed 10 years ago, about the time this army would also have been ordered. More mystery and more intrigue. With one answer comes more questions. The source of the clones was a bounty hunter named Jango Fett, who happens to be there on Kamino at that time, and is our Rocket Man. But he wasn't hired by Sifo Dyas. He was hired by a guy named Tyrannus. Interesting. A fight ensues. Fett escapes, and Kenobi tracks him down and follows him to Geonosis, where he sees a bunch of Trade Federation ships. Here he finds out that the Separatists, led by a former Jedi named Count Dooku, are building a droid army of their own, and that it was Viceroy Newt Gunray, who hired Jango to kill Padmé cause of a grudge. And that's the main source of our mystery solved, and it's pretty lackluster. The initial question of who is trying to kill Padmé turns into who deleted Kamino from the Jedi archives, why did Sifo-Dyas order a clone army with no one's permission or knowledge, who is Tyrannus, and why is this bounty hunter both the source of the clone army, but also in league with the Separatists? But only one question is answered, and not even in an interesting way. Newt wanted Padme dead, and we just overhear it. That's it. And nothing comes of that. The rest of the mystery from Obi-Wan's perspective remains just that, a mystery. The Jedi and the Republic then use these clones to start the Clone Wars, and they just leave that mystery unsolved. While this detective story is filled with intrigue that deepens with each step forward Kenobi makes, he makes for a very lousy detective. There is no scene the pieces come together for him. He has no revelation. He doesn't even grow as a character through all this. It doesn't try or test him. It was just something for him to do. There was the possibility of creating an inner conflict with his confrontation with Dooku. To him, Dooku was a friend and ally. He may be a misguided idealist, but this is the man who trained his master, Qui-Gon Jinn. In a way, Dooku is kind of his grandfather. But none of this is explored. Dooku is just evil now, and that's that. The whole journey leaves us empty. We, the audience, get closure as Dooku makes his way to Coruscant and meets with his master, Darth Sidious, who then calls him Lord Tyrannus, and we're left with, oh, Sidious and Dooku are playing both sides. I see what's happening here. So we get the revelation, but Obi-Wan doesn't. And what's worse, he doesn't seem to care. None of the Jedi care. They seem to have no issue using a clone army of mysterious origin based from a bounty hunter who is working for the Separatists who they will be fighting. Will these people be piecing this together right away? Clone army made in secret, the template of which is a bounty hunter named Jango Fett, who is hired by the Separatists to kill Padme, who is against the formation of a Republic military? At least one Jedi should say, hey, we probably shouldn't put our implicit trust into these clones, but no one raises any objections. Also, the story would be better if Darth Tyrannus was also an actual dinosaur.